to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note that the meeting will be audio recorded. Please switch off mobiles or turn them to silent. Please note that toilet and hand washing facilities are in the foyer area. Members of the public are reminded this is an official council meeting and the applications will be debated according to procedure rules set out in the council's constitution. Members of the public, can you please note that you are not permitted to speak at this meeting unless you registered to speak with the Democratic Services. In this way, everyone present will be able to hear the debate and councillors will be able to make an informed decision. Can I please also remind you to be respectful of all those attending the meeting, including other members of the public, councillors and officers. Members of the public, while you are of course entitled to film or take photographs during this meeting, can I please emphasise to you that this should be done without disruption to the meeting and can only be done from a designated area in the public seating. Can I please therefore ask you to raise your hand clearly in the air if you wish to take photographs or film this evening? Thank you. Can I ask on the side there if you could come into the middle? That's the area that we are allowed to do filming and photographs, please. Thank you. Appreciate your cooperation on that one. Members, there is a need to use microphones during the meeting. When I invite you to speak, please speak clearly into the microphone in front of you. Microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the live stream. Members, voting will be done on a show of hands in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands for and then against recommendations, and will also ask for a show of hands for those wishing to abstain from the voting. Items number 1 and 2, apologies for absence and substitutes. We have received apologies for absence from Councillor Stuart Wilson. Councillor Hoy will be substituting for Councillor Wilson. Okay, and we have Councillor Brewer is substituting for Councillor Cross. Other way round, sorry. Councillor Brewer is absent and Councillor Cross is standing. Thank you. Declarations of interest. There is other members attending. I do apologise. Other members attending, we have Councillor Steptoe, Councillor Williams, Councillor Cross, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Mrs Page, Councillor Newport, Councillor Foster and Councillor Sperring. Do I have anyone? And Councillor Gadsden. Anyone else that I've missed out? No, thank you. Okay, agenda item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of April. Sorry? That's next. So, the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of April, do I have any matters of fact on that, or can I take agreement on those minutes, please? Are we in agreement? Agree? Thank you. Item 5, to receive declarations of interest. Now, can I just hold you there a minute? Phil Drain would like to give a little bit of guidance on this one before we go any further, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I'm aware for this item we have members who also are part of Rayleigh Town Council, and I'm presuming that that is what the hands going up so far is regarding. Because of the community benefit fund proposed by the applicant on this application, the thought process here is that it's likely that those on Rayleigh Town Council, of which Rayleigh Town Council would benefit from that community benefit fund, those on Rayleigh Town Council would likely have a pecuniary interest on this application, and the advice is that they should therefore remove themselves from the debate and not vote.
May I ask if that's the advice from our solicitors?
We don't have legal representation here tonight. I've had to take advice from Phil Drain, officer relevant to the department on this one. So I'm going to have to go with his advice and in the absence of any other legal advice from our legal counsel.
Chairman, can I say I don't think that's acceptable. I think this should have, if there was a concern over this, should have been sorted out with proper legal advice before the meeting. I've never heard of people being excluded from taking part in a meeting on the basis that a council they sit on may receive money.
Unfortunately, this wasn't brought to our notice until just before the meeting, so we actually haven't had a chance to test the opinion legally. Councillor Shaw, I believe you were first.
Thank you, because it's not clear and people are asking for legal guidance. Can we ask for this to be deferred to the next meeting, please?
Okay, Councillor Efty.
I know we've had advice, but it's up to each individual councillor to declare if they feel they've got a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest. So it's up to them if they want to declare it or not. So whatever advice they can choose to take it or not.
I am aware that individual councillors have to declare on their own volition as to what their position is, and as a result of that, they take the rap if they're wrong. So, give me a moment, please. I'm being advised that we'd be best to adjourn for 5 minutes, if you wouldn't mind, and we will attempt to get hold of our legal counsel in the legal officer in the council and get solid advice. So if you wouldn't mind, members, we'll just take an adjournment for 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, if we could rejoin the meeting, please. And Phil has managed to get in touch with the standing in monitoring officer at Brentwood, who will give us the same advice as our own monitoring officer would give us. So over to you, Phil.
And thank you, Chair. I've spoken to the Acting Director of People and Governance, who, as Councillor Hayes points out, is the monitoring officer at Brentwood Council, not been able to contact the monitoring officer at Rochford Council, but essentially we have a situation where members are clearly free to declare themselves that they have a pecuniary interest. In this situation, it seems the case that where Rayleigh Town Council would benefit from funds that would come from the applicant in this case, that it is likely, as I think was being indicated, that people were putting their hands up to say that they had a pecuniary interest. The advice from the local government association is that when you do have pecuniary interests, that you do not vote on the item, and indeed that you may remove yourself from the debate. So this is the only advice that I have on this item. It is for members to declare whether they feel that they have a pecuniary interest on that basis.
Thank you. Now, can I just say that to stemmy the debate on this one, that members, you've got to make up your own mind on this. So if you decide to declare a pecuniary interest, that is the decision that you are making. And if at a later date you declare them non-pecuniary and there is found to be a pecuniary interest, then the onus is on you. So with that in mind, can we now...
Sorry, Chairman, on a point of order, can you explain what you mean by those words? What do you mean by onus is on you?
Well, there's a legal onus on, my understanding is that there's a legal onus on declaring a pecuniary interest. It's a non-pecuniary is something that is just within the Constitution. So there is no legal recourse on that to members should there be any ramifications from it. That is my understanding. If you believe that I'm wrong, I am open to challenge. No? Okay. So with that in mind then, can I have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Ward.
Yes, I have another peculiar interest in Rayleigh Town Council because of the addendum and the monies that are going to be ported to Rayleigh Town Council to the value of £480,000. I feel I cannot sit in this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Myers.
Yeah, mine actually relates to the second part, with declaring a non-pecuniary interest in effect of a Southend United season ticket holder.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Non-pecuniary interest as a member of the Rayleigh Town Council.
Thank you. Right.
Sorry, pecuniary interest.
Okay, thank you. With that in mind, I've been asked if we would move the agenda around because the situation is those who have declared a pecuniary interest and will not vote on this on the current LGA advice, they are not allowed to take part in the debate and they cannot be in the room. So for that particular item, you'll be asked to leave the room. So with that in mind, if we could bring item 6 forward before item 5, are we in agreement with that, members? Okay, so if we bring item 5 forward then, so over to Claire, thank you. Item 7, I do apologise.
Good evening, everyone. This application is for temporary planning permission for a period of 3 years for the siting of 12 single-storey modular buildings for welfare training and storage use, construction of a bund, amendment to the approved car parking layout, and construction of boundary treatment in association with the 4 grass football pitches granted planning permission on the wider site last year. As you can see from the location plan, so I'll outline the area in red here. So this is the actual site location that we're referring to here. The area outlined in a blue line, which I'm just showing here, is the wider site ownership of the for Southend United Football Club. So as you can see from the location plan, the site is on the eastern side of Sutton Road, so Sutton Road being here, incorporating Smithers Chase, just in this location here, and also lies to the north of Fossett's Way. So Fossett's Way runs along here. The site consists of approximately 0.53 hectares of land. Bordering this site to the south are the residential dwellings 1 and 2 Smithers Chase, so they're in this location here. And we also have the residential dwellings 1 to 11 Templegate Cottages, which are here. To put the site into context, as you can see from the wider site layout here, so it's quite wide here just to show you the whole extent of the wider Southend United application site for both authorities. So the application site is a part of a much larger development, mostly within the Southend area, for a stadium. So the stadium's here, and we've got some football games and some residential and commercial uses as well. Planning permission has been granted for this development by Southend, and a subsequent application for amendments to this remains under consideration. So if I zoom in, I'll just show you what's actually been approved in our past site last year. So this plan shows the development within the Rochford area that was granted permission last year, and it included 4 football pitches, grass football pitches, a permanent training centre building, flood attenuation pond, that's here, and match day parking area. The current proposal is to site 12 single-storey modular buildings at the site for welfare, training and storage use. So the largest 4 buildings would measure 69.6 metres squared, and that's those located here. 5 would measure 26.7, that's those 5 in the blue there. 2 would measure 12.9 metres squared, and 1 would measure 2.7, and that's those located here. They would be no greater than 2.6 metres in height and would be sited to the east of the attenuation basin in the approximate position of the approved permanent training centre building. An earth bund is proposed at the western edge of the site, extending from the balancing pond to a height of 2.6 metres. So that's the earth bund located here. The buildings represent a temporary proposal to enable sufficient training facilities to be provided adjacent to the pitches, as the former Boots and Laces facility will be closing to make way for residential development, which will assist in funding the overall stadium development. The permanent training centre building is intended to be constructed within a later phase of the wider stadium development. So this is showing the elevations, and also in purple, so the thick sort of purple line that you can see here actually shows the outline of the permanent training centre building that was approved last year on the site. So as you can see, these are the actual buildings here. This perspective here, sorry, I think it's running out of battery. So you can see here the western elevation. You've got the buildings lined up there, so you can see the 2 storage buildings there and the other structures located there. This one's a good perspective, showing the attenuation basin and then the earth bund coming up here, which looks to seek to mask some of the buildings from the Sutton Road perspective. This plan shows a training car park area which received planning permission in a similar form last year. So changes are sought to, among other things, increase the size of the car park area by 158.8 metres squared. This increase in size is partly to address the need to provide an increase in disabled parking bays and powered wheeler spaces. The parking area has also moved approximately 4 metres closer to the southern boundary and now lies closer to the attenuation pond, to that which was approved, with relocation of the refuse store also included. I'll just show you a comparison drawing, so you can sort of see here. The one to the north here, that's the one that was approved last year, and this is the one that we're currently considering. So you can see there's quite a lot of similarities between the two. The refuse store, which was located down here, it's slightly grey, which should be great on the application from last year, has actually now been moved to the northwestern corner here. We've got some more disabled bay provision, and there's just a slight more proximity closer to this southern edge here. So this plan shows the boundary treatment that is also included for consideration. It incorporates 3 metre high world mesh fencing so that's the ones that are highlighted green here. That's the world mesh fencing, part of which is already on the site for those locations. And then it also has a proposal for timber fencing on mounding rising to a height of 3 metres. So that's that thicker sort of red line located there. So this perspective actually shows a section drawing of the timber fence on the mounding, and that's proposed to give additional protection to the neighbouring residential properties at Smithers Chase because it's elevated to sort of 3 metres. And final plan just to show, so this is the front elevation of the gate that forms our entranceway into the parking area. So this is the green world mesh fencing as well, but in a gated form. The key material planning considerations are greenbelt, character and appearance, residential amenity, playing pitches, noise, highways, flood risk and sustainable drainage, foul drainage, air quality, archaeology, refuse, trees, ecology and light pollution. So looking at greenbelt, the site is located within the greenbelt. It is considered that the buildings would represent inappropriate development within the greenbelt due to the scale of development sought. However, very special circumstances are considered to exist at this site. These are formed by 7 collective things. The need to secure sufficient training pitches and facilities at the Rochford site ahead of the closure of Boots and Laces. The fact that the training facilities to accord with Sport England requirements need to be better than or equivalent to existing facilities. That Southend United have a first team and academy team, and the buildings they seek are therefore more equivalent to the requirements of a high-end club. That the proposal will result in less floor space than both their current facilities and the improved permanent training centre building. That the earth bund and green colouring will assist in mitigating the visual impact. That the buildings proposed are temporary. And finally, that the training pitches and facilities are fundamental to the deliverability of the wider stadium development. On this basis, it is considered that the very special circumstances identified outweigh the harm identified. It should be noted that the car park layout is not significantly different to that approved and will not be considered to have a greater impact on the greenbelt. Looking at character and appearance, the temporary buildings are single-storey cabins commonly found on industrial estates. However, whilst not as aesthetically pleasing as a purpose-made building, these are also a common feature of football pitches. The earth bund and green colouring would assist in reducing the impact of the buildings, and the boundary treatment using a combination of world mesh fencing and timber fencing is also considered acceptable. The nearest neighbouring properties are located in Smithers Chase, with those in Sutton Road also in close proximity. The buildings, being single-storey, would not be overbearing or generate unacceptable overlooking. The parking layout represents an improvement to number 1 and 2 Smithers cottages, as it would mean that it would be 2 metres further away, largely formed through a relocation of the bin store to the northwestern corner of the parking area from the southwestern. A fence installed on bunding is also proposed close to the boundaries of 1 and 2 to reduce impact. New to this application is the use of Smithers Chase to access the development. An increased usage of Smithers Chase, a private road owned by Roots Hall Limited, is not considered to be detrimental to the occupiers of Smithers cottages. Looking at playing pitches, the proposal represents replacement training facilities that would form equivalent to or better provision in accordance with the NPPF. Sport England has not raised an objection and is in support of the amendments made during the course of the application to increase the number of temporary buildings on the site. Looking at noise, the current proposal would not increase the level of activity from that approved through the previous application at this site. Therefore, it remains the case that the proposal is not considered to generate unacceptable noise levels. So looking back at the car parking end, the proposal would adhere to the parking standards requirements. The amendment to the layout of the parking area is considered acceptable. So that's just an image up there again of the parking layout that we're looking at before us tonight. The proposal now includes the use of Smithers Chase. So Smithers Chase, just being here, so with access onto Sutton Road here, rather than Fossett's Way to access the training pitches and training buildings car park. The whole proposal was for a temporary 3-year period, and this has been controlled by a condition within the recommendation to ensure that any impact could be reassessed after this period in terms of its acceptability. It would not include any greater quantity of traffic movement than previously considered, just a change in access. During the course of the application, a transport technical note was submitted which advises that the use of Smithers Chase would not generate a highway safety issue. Both Essex County Council and Southend City Council highway engineers do not raise issue with the use of Smithers Chase. On this basis, it is not considered that the proposal would have a detrimental impact upon highway safety through the use of Smithers Chase. Looking at flood risk and sustainable drainage, the applicant has submitted a surface water drainage strategy, which explains that the flows from the cabins would eventually drain into the attenuation basin. Perforated pipes with direct flows from the subbases of the artificial grass and self-binding gravel around the cabins towards a proposed inlet into the attenuation basin. Rainwater pipes from the cabin roofs would connect into the below-ground pipes and discharge through the same inlet into the attenuation basin. The car park has been constructed using asphalt, which would also connect up to the attenuation basin. Essex County Council, lead local flood authority, raised no objections subject to conditions. Foul drainage, so the foul water would be disposed of by way of a wastewater treatment plant located at the southwestern corner of the temporary training cabins site with outfall of treated water into the attenuation basin. It's been demonstrated that a public sewer connection is not feasible due to the temporary nature of the development and the distance to the nearest connection. It is considered that an acceptable foul water drainage strategy could be provided here. Air quality. So the current application will not generate any greater vehicle movements than that already approved. Whilst access to the site would be from Smithers Chase rather than Fossett's Way for the current application, it is not considered that this would be likely to generate any greater air quality issues than previously considered. Looking at archaeology, so archaeological works have taken place at this site, but this is in relation to the training pitch location only. Further work is considered to be required as advised by Essex County Council, and this has been controlled by a recommended planning condition. So looking at refuse, the approved refuse storage point is now proposed as referred to area to the northwestern corner located here. This location is considered to be more functional and raises no objection. So previously, just a reminder, it was located here. There are no details of the design of the intended refuse store. Such details are suggested to be controlled by planning condition to ensure that the building has a modest impact in terms of visual amenity. Looking at trees and ecology, so tree protection and the need for a method statement, along with ecological mitigation, was controlled by conditions attached to the previously approved application. These conditions need to be adhered to as works to undertake this application have commenced at the site. It is not considered necessary to repeat these conditions here. And then finally, light pollution. There is no proposal for the area to be where the temporary training buildings will be located or the training car park to use flood lighting. Whilst the development is likely to have some form of external lighting, the design of such lighting should be controlled by condition to limit its impact. Chairman, this application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions outlined in the report and addendum, and also subject to an amendment to condition 3. So I'm just going to show you a slight amendment condition 3 that we're proposing tonight, as well as officers. Sorry, just a moment when it loads. So this is the condition which is about limiting it to 3 years and also requiring a certain amount of development to be taken away after that 3-year period.
Sorry, Claire, can you make that
Sorry,
a bit
do you need me
bigger?
to zoom in a bit?
Possible,
Apologies,
please?
yeah. It's a bit small, isn't it? There you go. That's a bit better, isn't it? Is that okay? So this condition is all about limiting the 3-year time period for development and requiring certain things to be removed at the end of that time. So originally, as proposed in the addendum, it referred to the need to remove the 12 buildings and earth bund at the end of the previous the 3-year period, and for the land to be restored to its former condition. We're also adding in there in bold, and the use of Smithers Chase to cease at that particular point as well. So that's just a slight amendment that members would also be voting on tonight, as proposed by officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Members, as Claire has said, there is an additional addendum, which I would like to think that everyone has had a chance to read through. There are no public speakers on this item. Ward members, Councillor Mr Gooding, Councillor Steptoe and Councillor Williams. I believe that Councillor Steptoe wishes to speak. As usual, you have 5 minutes when you start. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, giving me the opportunity to speak to the committee. Could I just quickly ask if it's possible that they could rotate the map that is on there anti-clockwise, please? Okay. Don't worry if you can't. Okay. I've been involved with the development on this site since 2008, when I was first elected as Rochester District Councillor, and applications go back for this site way beyond there. So this has been 20 years in the making, and we're still discussing various aspects of it. I did leave some leaflets there. I don't know if many of the members have picked them up, but one of the biggest concerns that I have is around the entrance to Smithers Chase. Now, the boundary on this map is shown as it's in the road, not on the side of the road, but in the road. This map is the detail map which was produced in the 50s to fix the footpaths system. And you can see the little roundabout where it says Smithers Chase just there, and you can see where Smithers Chase goes on. The Fossett's Way is not marked on theirs because this is dated back to the 50s, but it runs off of that roundabout. And bear in mind that that exit coming off of Temple Farm there is the only exit from Temple Farm Industrial Estate and Stock Road, because Stock Road is a one-way street, all comes there, and just slightly off the map there to the left is where the cemetery is. Okay. Now, if I can refer you to the pictures, if possible, the officer put the pictures up for me. Okay, that's the entrance to Smithers Chase. As you can see, it's a single track road that's coming out onto the road there. If I could have the next picture, go down one more. That's the view looking to your left if you were coming out of Smithers Chase to the roundabout. So you can see how close the roundabout is. My concern, and I don't think either Southend Borough Council or City Council has addressed this, or Essex County Council, is if there is traffic, and that is a very, very busy road, Sutton Road. If anybody's driven that, you will know what I'm talking about. If there's traffic coming off of that roundabout, coming into the picture from the top right-hand corner, and there is a car about to turn into Smithers Chase right across the opposing traffic, and there is traffic or a line of cars coming out of Smithers Chase, that will then block the roundabout, and it will feed right the way back almost past the cemetery. So that's my single biggest concern, and I do not feel that either Essex County Council and or Southend City Council have addressed that particular issue. When this last planning application came forward, we did raise this as an issue at that time, and it was agreed on the planning application that the new road going in would be off of Fossett's Way. If I could have the other map up, please. Okay. You just come out a little bit, that's it. That would be where the green line comes down to the south, going into Fossett's Way, and a new junction and a roundabout put in at that point there. That's obviously a much safer way to deal with the issue. Question is, why is that happening? Why is it changing? I would suspect purely because the sheer cost of having to put it in. Smithers Chase, as I've already mentioned, is a very single track road. There are residents that live at the end, and I don't disagree that they...
1 minute left.
Okay, thank you. That they would have any difficulties. My concern is as traffic comes out, blocking the road. With regards to the containers or the portable buildings, I'm pleased to see that officers are going to lock in the time limit. Please, can I ask the committee to make that a fixed amount, and that is not allowed to slip over a period of time. As I say, this application has had so many various applications, and it's a job to know which application we're actually speaking to. I've lost track of it. I think there's 6 or 7 different applications that have got planning permission on this site in one form or another. Thank you, Chairman. I think that probably covers everything I needed to say.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, when you say fixed amount, are we talking about fixed amount of time?
Yes,
I think that is covered.
yes. I think I was pleased to see that. So
Yeah.
I hope that the committee will actually accept that and
Yeah.
lock it into the application if it
Yeah.
is agreed.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Williams. As you know, it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you.
let you know when we get to a minute left.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Chairman. I don't have any problems with this application whatsoever, other than Councillor Steptoe pointed out the access to the site. Last year, we had an application come before us, and a condition was put to that application that the access be from Fossett's Way. You can see these pictures now. This is nothing more than a farm track. This is the one that Mike pointed out. If we can go to the picture that faces north on Sutton Road, going up there, it looks quite, it's a blind corner that approach, so you would have cars coming from the north towards you. Just around that bend, there is Scott's Nursery, which now causes significant traffic issues. Now, I presume that the ground will have coaches attending. There is no way that coaches will safely be able to go in and out of that junction. So I would respectfully request that members place a condition on this, that the access should be as it was last year via Fossett's Way. And that's it. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members. Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like some clarification, if I may. A couple of things. One of the things that the temporariness, the temporary area, will that be returning to car parking? Because I can obviously see you've got all the pitches, the training pitches, which will remain. And I assume that everything from that will then stretch across the road from the stadia, and everything that is going to be built subsequently over the next 3 years. I would assume that, or have I make an incorrect assumption?
Can I refer that back to the officer, please?
Yes, sorry, just getting the relevant plan up, I think, to help. So to confirm, I don't know if hopefully this answers your question, but confirm if this doesn't. So last year we approved the match day parking, attenuation base and a permanent training facility, car park and pitches. They have commenced this application, so that could continue and they could continue doing that over the years to build that out. This application represents an alternative to that for the car park area and this area just here where the cabins will be located on top of where we have approved the permanent training facility building. So our 3-year temporary permission would require at the end of the 3 years the removal of the temporary cabins that are located here and an earth bund which is alongside, and it would require the ceasing of the use of Smithers Chase to access the development. It wouldn't require removal of the car park and the access road, because those have in effect in some form when it relates to the car park already been approved and could be constructed, or they already have partly been constructed on site at the present under the previous application we granted last year.
Okay, can I just further expand on that question?
Yes, certainly.
You've mentioned that will be used for match day parking subsequently.
No, sorry, that to avoid any confusion, this car park here is purely for the training facility only.
So it
the
will
match
not
day
be-
parking is this large area here.
Okay. I mean, obviously, I'd like to echo some of the points that were raised in regards to Smithers Chase. I mean, just looking at it and knowing it, having gone past it, you'd miss it if you weren't careful going along. I think that's actually quite dangerous in that area. I don't understand how highways have considered that to be appropriate as an entrance to it in any way, because it's going to be continue to be used as a training ground in that area. And there's going to be lots of toing and froing, because that's going to be the work base for Southend United Football Club, where that's where the work is done, the training ground. So as far as I can see, I believe it should be reconsidered that Fossett's Way and the entrance should be in Fossett's Way, a proper entrance going into the training ground, and the Smithers Chase should be negated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got to do a non-pecuniary interest because I'm Deputy Cabinet Member for Highways. But as we've got this, I actually agree with Councillor Ward about Fossett's Way. Could we defer this to have a site visit, please? If I've got a seconder to put something through, so because literally some members who do not know this area, could we actually defer it? This is a question.
Does anyone want to speak on the deferment? Councillor Rafferty.
Yes, I deliver parcels down Smithers, and it's really, really tight. You'd drive past it if you didn't know where it was. I think people who don't know where it is, I think should actually have a site visit. It is very, very not suitable.
Yvonne.
Yeah, just to reiterate that this is an existing access that is actually already used by vehicles. The use that's proposed is just purely for the training, for the players to come for the training facility. It's a temporary consent, and we've conditioned it that the use of Smithers Chase will actually be ceased once that 3-year consent is actually up. So I think what we're trying to say is that, you know, this isn't a new access that's being created. It's an access that's already accessible by vehicles. You know, we're hearing obviously members' concerns, but what we need to obviously be reminded of, the committee, is that neither Southend City Council, Highways Authority have an issue with the club using this access for this purpose, and Essex County Council, who obviously are responsible for the road network adjacent to it, also don't raise an issue. Actually, I think the photographs that have been shown are quite useful. I don't actually think that a site visit will actually show members anything different to what's already there. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. If you don't mind, I was only just going to add as well. So on page 7.31 is the Essex County Council High Road response. And I just wanted to draw your attention to, although they have provided informal comment, behind their comment, they have based it on looking at no recorded accidents at the location. The proposed vehicle movements are low, and the junction visibility is all within design standards. So they've looked at that, and in addition to that, concluding that Smithers Chase is also a private road. So they have looked at that in order to reach their conclusion that they don't consider to be a highway safety issue in association with the access. Just to make you aware.
Can I make a suggestion on this? I do understand some of the members' concerns on this, and we've talked about this before. One of the things that I haven't thought about was the possibility of coaches going down there. Could we request a weight limit around there to stop larger vehicles using that road? Would that be something that would be what we would have the power to suggest?
The problem that we've got is that this is an existing access. So already there could be larger vehicles accessing, making deliveries to the residential properties already down Smithers Chase. So that wouldn't actually be practical, because you're being putting a restriction on something that is not going to just be related to the use of this for the club facility, but for the wider use of Smithers Chase. So I don't think it would actually be reasonable to actually suggest that.
Okay, I'm aware that other members want to actually come in here, but we have a bit of an issue here because this is we've got the recommendations from the statutory authorities. And if the applicant should decide then to appeal, they've got very good grounds to actually overturn what we actually decide if we do make that a different classification to what it is at the moment. Councillor Ward.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I think the main point here, we're talking of Smithers Chase that is used as an access for a couple of cottages, ones and twos, and they may have a delivery, they may not. The actual intensification will be far greater now using that access. There's no doubt about it, because you're going to have lots of guys going up there in their Mercedes or whatever they're driving, up and down, coming out and doing whatever they do, as young guys do. And I'm really concerned about this. I really am. And I don't think it may be that that road is the road, but it is totally unsuitable. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, from what I'm seeing and what we're being asked to decide on tonight is to accept that this road is acceptable. And in my opinion, it definitely is not acceptable because of intensification.
Okay, Councillor Stanley, sorry, I skipped.
Chairman, thank you. I'd like to put a motion forward that the Smithers Chase is not used and that the road to Fossett's to the site would, as a condition, would have to be instigated, and the exit or that road, whether it be a left-hand turn only into the grounds and not a right-hand turn into it, due to the fact of all the traffic that is going up and down Fossett's Way, and also to make a exit from the ground. And we've been told that that ground belongs to the football club, whoever they may be. They can put a road in to go to the roundabout at the B&Q to put a track in there, so that that would alleviate all movement in Smithers Chase.
Can I just refer back to the officers on that, please?
So, Chairman, before us is a proposal to use Smithers Chase. We don't have Fossett's Way within this application for consideration, so it wouldn't be a reasonable condition to impose as part of the application. So what members need to conclude on tonight is whether they consider the use of Smithers Chase acceptable or not, but that wouldn't be a reasonable condition for us to impose as part of this application.
Therefore, I would like to put a motion forward that Smithers Chase is not acceptable to this planning application.
I think we've heard from officers that unfortunately that is something that we can't do. Am I reading that right?
I suppose it's really a point as to where members want to go with the argument around the Smithers Chase. I know a site visit was being put forward as well, but at the moment, you understand officers' perspective. We've got our specialists advising us that there's no concern with regards to Smithers Chase. If we were going down the line of refusal, that would make, I think, potentially a bit of a difficult argument on appeal without any sort of specialist backup surrounding us, where we have both two authorities as well, which we don't often have. We've got Essex County Council and Southend City Council both raising no issue, but obviously that's officers' perspective.
Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. Possibly going back to Green here, but should be used to this by now. Possibly going against the grain of most people around the table, but in the report I can't see any resident opposing the use of the lane. We have the report from Essex Highways, which we're always told we have to take particular note of, and it's not really appropriate for us to disagree with them. So I understand from, as I often do, disagree with highways, and I understand the issue around the entrance that Councillor Steptoe said and Councillor Williams and other members, but I think on the basis of what's in front of us, I think I will be having to reluctantly support the application.
Councillor Constable.
Are we speaking to the motion now, or are we speaking to other points?
sorry, I've held back on that at the moment because I think it's relevant to actually hear all sides of the argument. The reason being why is because we've been advised that if we actually did turn this down on the basis of the access not being good, that it's pretty dead certain that we lose on appeal.
Right,
And
because
do we-
my point wasn't to do with this motion, it was to do with another part of the application.
I'd like to hear all arguments first, and then we'll come back, I think, if that's okay. Yeah, okay. Because I think that everything's rather intertwined here at the moment, and I think I'd rather actually hear everyone's views before we actually take a stand on Councillor Stanley's motion.
Okay, well, my point was on the hoarding that is around the site, whether that was being removed as part of the application, because if it isn't, I would like the advertising hoarding that was put up removed as a condition of this planning application, because it was put up illegally without planning permission in the first place. It's not?
No, so there's permitted development rights for that hoarding to actually be erected. So it wasn't put up illegally, it was erected because it had planning consent, and the technical, the legislation actually says that the development needs to commence, I think it's within 3 months of the hoarding being erected, and they did commence development on the site within that period. And the advertising that's on the hoarding is as per the advert regulations. That's been checked by the enforcement team probably about 4 years ago.
Okay, but can we have a condition that that is removed as part of this planning application?
Well, I mean, obviously, the reason why sites have hoarding put up is to actually contain development and construction works within the hoarding, so there isn't any, you know, it limits any sort of dust and etc. that goes out onto the highway. So the hoarding's there for a purpose.
Yeah, once that development's been done, though, that doesn't serve a purpose anymore.
Yes.
Plus, it is falling into disrepute. It's falling apart. It just looks a total eyesore. And I'm just wondering if we can have that as a condition of the planning, that it is either removed or maintained properly.
Yeah, I don't, you know, I'm not disputing what you're saying. I don't think it's reasonable to put it on as a condition, but I think what we could do, I mean, officers could actually speak to the club and ask them whether or not it can actually, its appearance can be improved, if that would assist.
Well, I would prefer it as a condition, because we know what goes on with buildings, whether they want to spend that money or not, or whether they've got the money to spend.
Yeah.
So I would like it actually noted as a condition, if that's possible.
Okay.
Please.
But bearing in mind that this particular application is for the temporary porta cabins and not to do with the match day parking that still needs to be developed, which is where the hoarding pretty much sits around. So it will certainly be relevant to ask for the hoarding to be removed once the match day parking has been actually installed. But there's going to be quite a bit of earthwork to be done, and I think actually the hoarding does serve a very important purpose for when that match day parking is installed.
Okay, but can it be maintained then to make it?
Yeah, we can certainly speak to the club
eyesore
about
that it is now.
Yeah, we can speak to the club about that.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
absolutely fine.
Thank you. I've got two more members that want to speak, and I think we have actually had this one for quite a long time, so I will restrict it to those two councillors, if that's okay, please, and then we'll come back to Councillor Stanley's motion. So, Councillor Myers.
The only thing I would say, and perhaps the club could actually confirm this one way or the other, I can't see players turning up in coaches. Most of them are going to be living locally, turning up in their own private cars. So I can't see where we've got in coaches coming in and out, because we're saying it's not going to be used for the match day. So, yes, I grant it is a very tight junction, but we've driven past it loads of times, seeing cars coming out of it, and it's never caused a problem when I've ever driven past.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for allowing me to come back. I just need another bit of clarification, if I may. You mentioned that Smithers Chase will be temporary use for the 3-year period. You can confirm that subsequently another entrance will be used?
So it remains the case that they've still got the permission for the Fossett's Way access and Fossett's Way roundabout. And that still is within their phase to actually construct. It's just later down the line, because obviously they need a certain amount of funding and payment to obviously build out the remainder of the much wider development we've got going on here. So the Smithers Chase access and usage, at the minute we have controlled for a 3-year temporary period. At the end of that 3-year period, we have controlled that use of Smithers Chase should cease. And obviously later down the line, they will look to build their permanent training building anyway.
Okay, if I may then say, Chairman, that I would actually agree with what Councillor Hoy was saying with regard to the highways issues, that, you know, we need to be quite careful with the advice we're getting from statutory bodies. And the fact that it is limited to 3 years is a very important factor. And I think, you know, that is something that we have to emphasise, and that has to be a very strict condition. And that then places the onus on the owners, Southend Football Club, to ensure that a proper access is created in the proper way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I've just got one question, and it's unrelated to anything that we've got at the moment. The foul water drainage, we've got a temporary, we're told it's a temporary pumping or a treatment station there. That is coming out at the end of 3 years, is that right? Because I understand that the proposal is not near enough to the main sewerage to actually be able to link, but I don't know what the ongoing issue is with that.
It's not conditioned to be removed at the end of the 3-year period, but I don't consider that potentially necessary, because at the point when they need to construct the permanent training centre building, it's obviously a much larger operation and it will need a permanent connection at that particular point. And that permanent connection is going to be roughly, look at me bleep on, around about there, I think it is, or might be further up. It's in Fossett's Way, along Fossett's Way, and that's where the whole of the stadium development will connect up to. So it is proposed later down the line. So it's not a condition to remove the wastewater treatment plant at that point, but obviously inevitably when the cabins are removed and this permanent building will go in, it will need a permanent connection at that point, as required by building regs.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley, would you like to verbalise your motion, please?
First of all, Chairman, may I point out that the Sutton Parish Council on page 7.31 has said that the Smithers Chase is a single lane and totally unsuitable for envisaged 30 cars that will bring the tight access point to Temple Farm roundabout and Sutton Road. That is their statement from Sutton Parish Council, who objects to that. You can see that. First of all, thank you. Getting back to my motion of that the Smithers Chase is unsuitable for this amount of traffic, and that Fossett's Way should be the right way of going about entrance into the areas of Southend training ground, and an exit from only a left-hand turn into that from Fossett's Way, and another entrance or exit be made to go into Fossett's Way at another point. Thank you.
Okay, Sonia, could you possibly read that back to us?
No.
No, cannot. So, right. So, can I have a bit of clarity on that then, please? Because I think we're
just to say that. Okay, I'll put it in plain English. Smithers Chase is unacceptable as an entrance into the playing area, and that Fossett's Way should be used as a way in and a way out at different places.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Knight. So, those in favour? Sonia, could you just read that back to us, please?
So if I understand correctly, Councillor Stanley, you're moving a motion that Smithers Chase is an unsuitable access and that Fawcett Way should be the access used.
Okay with that? Yeah. Okay, so everyone understood that? Yeah, okay, so okay, I'm being asked that as part of your motion then, do you consider that grounds for refusal of the application?
Yes. As refusal that the Smithers Chase is not suitable for the traffic that's going to be used on that and where it is as an entrance in Sutton Road.
Councillor Knight, you still happy to second that? Yep, okay. Right, so we go to a vote then. Those for the motion, please indicate. Okay, thank you. Hands down. Those against? Any abstentions? Yep. So we have 2 for the motion, 9 against and 1 abstention. That motion is lost. So now we go to the substance of the application, and the recommendation is that the planning permission be approved subject to the conditions set out on pages 7.1 through to 7.9 of the report and on pages 3 to 5 of the addendum.
Condition 3.
Right, there's a slight variation to condition 3. At the end of the first paragraph, I'll read the whole paragraph actually because I think that'd be clearer. Condition 3 is this permission shall be limited to a period expiring 3 years from the date of this permission, at which time the 12 buildings and earth bund hereby approved shall be removed from the site and the land restored to its former condition on or before the expiry date, the use of Smithers Chase to cease at that point, unless a renewal of this permission has been sought and obtained. Do we understand that? Yep. Okay. So can I have an indication of those in favour? Sorry. Yep. Councillor Ashley.
Because on the final amendment, it says Smithers Chase was to be put back, was to be taken out of it after 3 years. So I was a little bit, so where you read that out saying.
That's just what I read out.
Yeah, that says it.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's an inclusion in there. That's why I read it out.
I think there was a slight variation in, the reading in comparison to the one on the screen, but it is virtually the same. It reads virtually the same, just in a slightly different
just
way.
they could go back. They could go back to get planning to use it again with what you read out.
Right.
Yeah, so the use of Smithers Chase, so this would control and ensure that the use of Smithers Chase for the purpose which this application is approving would cease after 3 years.
So members, do you want me to read out what's on the screen? No, you're happy with proceeding on that? Yep. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I understand you've added that in subsequently tonight. That's the important thing. It doesn't exist in the addendum. You've added that in subsequently. Thank you.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. Right. So members, those in favour of the, no, sorry. Oh, I need a seconder. Sorry. Who are we going with? Councillor Ward. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So now those in favour, please indicate. Okay, hands down. Those against? Okay. Any abstentions? Thank you. That is 10 for, no one against, and 2 abstention. That application is approved. Thank you, members. I'm being asked if we can adjourn for 5 minutes, just to be clear on this pecuniary interest issue. So we will adjourn for another 5 minutes if you don't mind. Members, can I ask you to reconvene, please? Okay, members, can we get started again, please? Now, before we get going, Phil Drain is just going to give us a little bit more further clarity on the legal position, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I appreciate your patience on this one. I think it's important just to... Is it not loud enough? Okay. Thank you for your patience, members. I think it's important that we make decisions in the most appropriate way in terms of public perception and just making sure that we're comfortable with the advice that's being given. I have been able to speak to the monitoring officer at Rochford Council. I'd suggest that I just clarify the point around pecuniary interest in particular, just so that we're clear for the decision-making process. Obviously, it is up to individual members to declare whether they think they have an interest or otherwise, but I'll come on to that. So it is a matter for each member to determine individually. The advice being given to committee members is that being a member solely of Rayleigh Town Council does not constitute a disclosable pecuniary interest as defined by the relevant authorities, including disclosable pecuniary interests and the regulations of 2012. Therefore, members are able to participate in the debate and potentially vote, dependent on their perspective of whether they hold an interest. However, given the fact, as we've set out within the addendum and the community benefit fund that's being offered to Rayleigh Town Council, it may be that members need to consider whether or not that they have a predetermined or biased in respect of the application in terms of what the right decision is. So, for instance, a permission would mean potentially that the Community Benefit Fund comes to Rayleigh Town Council, and therefore members of Rayleigh Town Council may need to consider whether that in any way gives them an interest or potentially predetermines in some way the decision that they're making. If they're unable to approach the application with an open mind, they must not participate or vote. So again, I think it's important that members are aware that it is their position, their view as to whether they hold an interest and whether or not they participate and vote. And therefore, I think that is the advice that is being given to members on this basis. I would just say, and this may come up in debate, that clearly the Community Benefit Fund is not relevant to the planning decision that we're making this evening on the basis that it's outside of any Section 106. It's not part of anything that makes the application permissible or required. But in the sense of the potential conflict that exists if members are on Rayleigh Town Council, that's for those members to consider whether or not they want to participate in the debate and indeed vote. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Before I ask the officer to present the report, members, I assume that you have all read the addendum relating to the application. Okay, thank you. Okay, over to Arwell. Thank you. Oh, sorry, hang on. Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Basically, on the advice given and my own personal view, I feel it is better for me to actually withdraw for this meeting before anything is said whatsoever. I feel it is the safest course of action for me to take in regards to the interests that I have pertaining to the whole of this particular application. So I will ask to be excused from this meeting now. And,
Okay, thank you, councillor.
thank you very
appreciate
much.
your candour, and yes, you are excused.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Right, this application relates to a proposed 30 megawatt solar farm with ancillary infrastructure intended to operate over a 40-year period. The solar farm would generate enough electricity to supply around 11,000 and 11,500 homes with electricity, and it would save over 13 tonnes of CO2 emissions per annum in terms of the overall reduction and the impact of the development in this sense. Now, I'm going to show you a few plans. Bear with me, there's quite a bit to get through, but I'll try and make it as painless as possible. So the first plan I'm going to show you is just to highlight the site area here, which is in red. So I just wanted to show this plan in terms of the wider context of site. So here we've got the settlement of Rayleigh that envelopes the site to the east and north. We've got the very prominent A127 east-west arterial road here. We've got the A13 coming up, serving, and then up onto the A130 here. And then we've got the A1245 coming from off the Fairglen interchange, and that road there would take it to Rawrath. Michelin's Farm, the council's allocated employment site, and also partly Gypsy Traveller site is here. South and North Benfleet in these areas here. So just to confirm then, this site, although you can see what its relationship is to the wider built form and the infrastructure in the area, it is designated green belt. If we can move on to slide 2, please. So this plan here, so the site is edged in red here, so it's not entirely square. So the site actually is 40.20 hectares, and that equates actually approximately to 130 acres in site area. So although on the plan it just looks a rectangular area, it is quite significant in its scale. So in terms of scale and distances, along the north boundary, from here to here, it is 1,296 metres. And from north to south, centrally, here, it's approximately 400 metres at its west aspect. So it's here, actually, that's where I've been measuring there. Emphasize that the site does not extend all the way to the interchange. So Michelin's Farm would be here. So this area here is not forming part of the application site, and neither is this area here between the bottom of Great Wheatley Road and Great Wheatley Farm. This is the vineyard area where the footpath crosses it. And some members who attended the site visit would have viewed the site from that style there, and there's a picture later on to show you under the visual impact assessments. So I'm just going to point to some of the features. So the length along the A127 along here is 757 metres, whilst the staggered boundary to the east, which is this boundary here, in its entirety is 639 metres if you follow the boundary in this fashion. So I'm just going to point out some of the features on the plan. So we've got obviously Rayleigh settlement here, and we've got Wheatley Woods here, which is managed by the Woodland Trust. And then we've got Great Wheatley Farm here, which we'll be mentioning later on, which is a listed set of buildings. So it's a designated heritage asset here. I just wanted to pinpoint actually that Great Wheatley Farm, from this point here, is over 200, although it looks quite close, doesn't it, on a map, it's over, from this point here, it's roughly 387 metres at the east aspect of the site from Great Wheatley, and 241 metres from nearest parcel of parcel 8. So the site, as you see from the next slide, is split into parcels from 1 to 8 parcels. So just to give you an idea of the context of the site. So we'll move on to the third slide, please. So here, I've mentioned it before then. So you can see now the relationship, just a zoomed up version. So you can see that the electricity substation is here. And on the layout plan, which we'll see in a minute, is that there's going to be like the main infrastructure in terms of transformer station and the control area is going to be here, with cabling coming this way and servicing the electricity substation here. So, sorry, this was when some of the members on the site visit stood then, and they looked over the site in this direction. So there's quite a distance actually then from here to here across that vineyard area. And this is the only rights of way, but this rights of way, footpath number 24, if I remember, doesn't actually cross the site. It just crosses from the bottom of Great Wheatley Road on that style downhill towards the A127. And this is an ornamental pond. I think that's Beechcroft Farm. I think that belongs to. Just another feature on this plan, just before we move on, you can see it's worth noting the contour point. So when one looks at the site, and I've stood on the site in various parts of it, it looks relatively flat. But as you see from the contour line there, it says 22 meters, well, it'd be above ordnance datum, and that's 30 meters. So there is a rise in the land as you go from east to west, southwest to northeast, really. So although it's not all that discernible actually on the site, and I think that's because, you know, we're talking about such a long distance, you're not talking about 1,000 meters odd here, so that incline isn't all that obvious. If you'll go to the next slide, please, the model array and layouts, just to show you the pattern. So I mentioned that it was split into parcels. So parcel 1, the site access actually is coming in here. So parcel 1, I don't intend to show you the zoomed up plans, but in each of these parcels, pretty much, there's a transformer station. The transformer station for parcel 1 is somewhere here near to the access. And the general pattern is the little transformer stations will be located in the corner of each field, culminating in a greater mass of buildings in this corner here, strategically sited because there's already some tree growth here, so they can be screened here, and also strategically it's located close to where the cabling from this point here will be taken to the substation, which is outside the application site. So just to say on this plan, they'll be arranged in rows facing south, orientated at an angle of 20 degrees at a height of 3 meters. They'll be secured onto metal frame, either piled into the ground or surface mounted with anchors. And the next slide shows the profile of the actual panel then. So there we go. So what we call the leading edge of the panel is roughly 0.7 vertical relative to the ground level. So you can see how they will be effectively fitted on these stanchions, I would call them really. And either those will be piled into the ground or they'll be surface mounted in terms of probably like a concrete pad and bolted onto the pad. So effectively they'll be sitting lightly on the site really. So, you know, very different perhaps from a building operation as such. So I'm just going to mention there are 7 transformer stations in total within the corner of the respective parcels, and there'll be underground cabling. And the proposed construction hours is 7 days per week during the construction period, from 7:30 until 1800 weekdays and 8:30 to 1800 weekends. I'm going to show you now an access point to the site, which is quite important. Right, okay, let's have a look. I think here's plan number 007. Okay, it's not all that discernible there if you can zoom in. So here we go. So the access point is here. Initially, there was an eastern access point, but that's been done away with. So just to explain really around the access, as in the report, the current access to the site is achieved from an existing field access junction located off the eastbound carriage of the A127 south end of Tyrol Road. I want to just explain the green and the brown shading. So what we know is that On a county level, there's going to be infrastructure improvements to the Fairglen interchange. So the area marked in brown has been produced by the applicant just to demonstrate that this scheme effectively has been designed to coincide with the improvements to the Fairglen interchange. So what the Fairglen interchange would involve is that it would involve removal of hedgerow along here to provide improvements to this area here. So this is permanent works that are required in connection with Fairglen interchange, which is not part of this application. And the green bit is the temporary works that are required, temporary improvements that are required in connection with this particular scheme. I'll explain a little bit as we go along. So if we go on to the
Chairman, if I may, I have no idea what's green and what's brown at the moment.
Right, so this brown bit here.
Yeah, I'm colourblind, remember.
Oh, sorry. This area next to the red line, which I'm outlining now.
Can't see red either.
Right, I don't know what to suggest really, but can you see the actual pointer then, Councillor? Right, so can you see the pointer? This area I'm going along now, shakedly, is going to be an area where there has to be some improvements to the highway edge in connection with the Fairglen interchange improvements down here. So it does implicate, if you like, the road that comes up onto the A127 off that interchange. So this represents road verge clearance of vegetation coinciding with the Fairglen interchange improvement works. And the bit I'm outlining now here are works that will be temporarily undertaken in connection to provide access for this scheme during the construction phase. That's the best way I can explain it. Okay, thank you. If we can move on to Plan 09, please. Yeah, so this is quite important, this one. So this drawing here, as members can see from the reading, so this coincides with what I've just said, really. So, but what this drawing also shows is what we call the deceleration taper. So when vehicles will have to approach this site, obviously from a westerly direction from the interchange, if they're coming down from Rawrith or the A127 or the A13, they have to come this way, don't they? So when the construction phase is taking place, there'll be slowing movements here. So this is like the deceleration taper, and this shows in effect the sweep path analysis of construction lorries. So what this drawing shows is the swept path analysis of, the swept path analysis of lorries and construction vehicles as they're coming into the site, and then the swept path of vehicles coming out of the site, and this is the actual acceleration taper. So there has to be enough room within that strip, which will form part of the highway, to enable all these safe movements to take place. And this scheme has been undertaken and is coincided with what we call a road safety audit stage 1 that's been tested and scrutinised, if you like, and interrogated by Essex County Council and its consultants. And this scheme actually now is RSA stage 1 compliant. So if you perhaps move on to the next slide. I think it's actually, yeah, and then again, what this shows is just within the area of the acceleration and deceleration taper is some of the root protection areas of trees that will be affected. And in the report, it does make mention of certain types of trees by their classification that will be affected to some degree. That's covered. I'll try and come back to that under the main section on trees. So just plan 11, please. So yeah, this plan here does show, so this is the actual plan that was approved. This is a county matter plan. So basically my understanding of the Fairglen interchange is to create, well, a safer access that eases the flow of traffic at that interchange in a more appropriate manner, stop it clogging up at peak flow times and things like that. So if we move on to plan 12, please. So I don't know whether you can zoom that up, Claire, but doesn't matter if you can't. Okay, so this is an illustrative landscape master plan. And what, in essence, the brown area here shows these will be new access tracks, but they seem to coincide with the field edges. So currently, right now, what we've got here, there's a series of ditches within these fields, particularly along here and here. So these tracks will be required to service the plant and equipment. So there's quite a lot of track going in, made out of porous materials. Now, the green bits that we see is the planting of new hedgerow along the field margin. So currently, there's some pictures to show you, but currently, other than in this area here, and there's a few trees dotted around, it's quite a vast open site. And I think that what the report says about this as well is in terms of biodiversity net gain and the illustrative master plan, which this is that it aims to do, well, two things really, which is to minimise the visual impact of the solar panels themselves, as the panels in terms of visual will be broken up into these parcels and there'll be screening, but also as members will note from the report, there's a biodiversity net gain compared to the sort of matrix on biodiversity of about a plus 140%. So they'll serve a dual purpose. So the idea is to reinstate what was probably before, you know, the 1940s or post-war, these fields were turned into much larger fields. So there's a sort of a reconvening of probably what the original field boundaries were. Okay, I've highlighted the plans, net gains. Right, I'll just show you some pictures before we go on to what the main planning issues are, and I discuss those. We'll just wait for those plans to open up. And I'll just talk through these plans really. So this plan is taken. So these dwellings here actually are Wheatley Woods would be up here. That actually isn't Great Wheatley Road or Great Wheatley Farm. That is more up this way. So that's just a shot looking from the highway, the A127, across part of the site. I think that's parcel 4. Just to give you an idea of scale, we'll just move on to the next slide, which is 015. Quite slow to open, are they, Claire? Yeah. If we can't open all of them, they're just... Let's have a look. How about we open, can we go to 28, or are we having trouble opening any of them, or? Perhaps what we'll do is I'll carry on and talk through the main issues, but there is one photograph that I would like to show you, which is relative to the viewpoint from the bottom of Great Wheatley Road, which is, I think it's about number, if we go back, can you see that, the reference to visual Great Wheatley GWR? Can you see that, Claire?
Yeah.
GWR Summit. Okay, let's see if this will open. But what the photographs that we can't open, unfortunately, at the moment is they show you various shots across the site from, there was a view of the train going past, there's a view looking north, there's a view looking north to south, so you could see the boundary of the hedging along the A127. So then trying to portray really the screening within the site. But what I'll do is, as we're trying to open the picture of, I think what we'd like to do is show you the picture of the site from the bottom of Great Wheatley Road, which is quite a key focal point. But if we, in the meantime, until we can open that, perhaps I'll just go through some of the planning issues then and summarise what they are, and we'll come back to that photograph, that GWR, if we can open it. So we've just summarising the report, so the key considerations, as members will know, starts at 3.12 and ends at 3.208. So it's quite a meaty report, isn't it? So the highlight within paragraph 312 is the key section, the section 38.6 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act. So when we're talking about the principal development, I suppose we're looking at the fundamentals of planning policy that requires local authorities to determine applications in accordance with the provision of the development plan, unless material planning considerations indicate otherwise. And the planning policy framework, which obviously is in favour of sustainable development. But as members will note from the report, the council does have a policy relating to renewable energy, which is the NV6, large-scale renewable. It doesn't actually define in terms of site area what is large-scale. But in terms of the council's own policies, then it doesn't presume against large-scale renewable energy per se, but seems to obviously want to avoid sensitive sites like the Crouch Estuary, SSSIs, areas of ecological importance. So the starting position is we're looking at the green belt issue. So as members will note from a report, that in definition terms, the National Planning Policy Framework at paragraph 147 to 149 doesn't list large-scale renewables as one of those exceptions, does it, within the policy? So as a starting point, there is definitional harm, because of the definition, it is inappropriate development. There is also the other harm by the very presence of the development within the Metropolitan Green Belt, which is enough in itself to trigger a second other consideration of harm. Paragraph 335 of the report speaks to the planting proposed, which mitigates the visual dimension of harm. Paragraph 3.26 speaks to localised harm in visual terms, and reference is made to the erosion of openness by existing developments, including road network and Michelin's farms, and also pylons. So in effect, what I'm saying, members, is that it is green belt, but when you're assessing the actual magnitude of the actual harm from the development, you've got to also consider the context of a site in its wider setting and what other infrastructure, if you like, has also already had an impact on that landscape. But it's not to say it isn't harmful, but we've got to take a view of that coinciding with that harm as well. So it falls to say that very special circumstances need to exist, don't they, to outweigh these harms. And this, as members will note, is discussed at 3.27 to 3.52 of the report, which relates to the weighting and effect attributable to the other factors, which in themselves would need to constitute very special circumstances. And the key issue, of course, is whether the very special circumstances would outweigh the green belt harm, although the harm expressed is at the lower end of the scale. 3.29 highlights the scope for local planning authorities to define what amounts to very special circumstances, although the test is a high one. What are the factors amounting to very special circumstances? So this is defined in paragraph 151 of the National Planning Policy Framework, that recognise that many renewable energy projects will comprise inappropriate development. The same paragraph then goes on to mention circumstances including the wider environmental benefits associated with increased renewable energy production. The public benefit of clean solar energy attracts very substantial weight and amounts to very special circumstances necessary to outweigh the substantial harm to the green belt. So in this case, members will note that I've outlined in my report the following. So what are the special circumstances in this case? Well, the land available in Rochford is limited. So the total landmass of the district is 16,800 hectares, 12,763 of which is Metropolitan Green Belt, with 12,986 hectares constituting areas of high ecological importance. The site selection and suitability is therefore limited for developments of this scale. I think that's what my report is saying. Flooding and landscape issues are constraints on many other sites in the district. Connection to the grid availability is another one. Paragraphs 3.33 to 3.52 speaks to the benefits of the proposed development in terms of the policy position, including paragraph 1.52 and 1.58 of the framework and appeal decisions, which support and which give significant weight to renewable energy production, which in a vast number of appeal decisions are shown to outweigh the harm to the metropolitan green belt and other harm. In this case, biodiversity net gain, this is a feature of the development through the planting of new hedges around parcel boundaries and tree planting around the transformer station. And also material to this decision, the principle of solar technology and solar development within the metropolitan green belt has already been established by Rochford Council on previous occasions, including planning reference 2100605 FUL, which is the solar farm application at South Fambridge, which, as I recall, was slightly larger site than this site. 3.52 of the report recognises that there are other matters which also must be considered within the planning balance and are dealt with in the report. So the landscape impacts. Just consider that time. Okay, that's fine. So the report mentions the landscape impacts, and I think the conclusions of the landscape impact is that there will be impact. This is a shot during the winter months, looking down at the site now. The summer one would be better if we could open it, but if we can't, that's fair enough. It's the slide before it, summer. Can you see that GWR summer? Yeah. Okay, it's not open at the end. So we can open the summer when it's not opening, but basically the site is here, basically. So this is the intervening vineyard area, and the site is here, Michelin's farm is here, and the site wraps around the back. So I think basically, in summary then, the report accepts that there is some harm to the visual landscape here in terms of visual harm. People will see this site from the footpath, but it's not a national trail. So if it was a national trail with many people using it, this receptor point would be more sensitive by that nature. So we'll just move on then and try and summarise. So the landscape, public benefits, yeah, let's have a look. Yeah. So what we've concluded is the landscape harm as well, in addition to the visual harm, is not sufficient. It's of negligible. It'll be negligible in real terms. We'll just move on. The impact upon the heritage assets is discussed in detail in 3.87 and 3.100 of the report, which is Great Weekly Farm. Just before I finish and come to the recommendation, it's important to say that paragraph 399 of the report is significant. It makes reference to paragraph 202 of the framework, which talks about weighing the harm against the public benefits. So the impact upon the heritage asset of Great Weekly Farm, there is a harm as summarised also and confirmed by Built Heritage Conservation of Essex Council, but the harm's at the lower end of a scale. Members will then note that I've drawn then on the public benefits and also the planning balance. So planning law tells us we have to apply a balance in the decision-making process. And I think how the report concludes is that there are many aspects of the scheme in terms of the contribution to sustainable energy production, consistent with appeal decisions also that actually must carry significant weighting, that outweigh the harm to the green belt and also outweigh the harm to the heritage assets. So my recommendation, Chairman, is subject to the conditions attached, that permission be granted, subject to the 26 conditions as set out in the recommendation. Thank you. No, yeah, no, it's fine. That's fine. That's the more. Not to worry, that's fine. Can you get the summer one up or not? Doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry for the delay there, just taking a bit of advice. We have two public speakers on this item, and I'd like to start off by asking Mr. George Wellerman to please come and take your place at the microphone, and you have 5 minutes to speak from when you start. I'll give you a 1 minute warning when you get to it.
Just before I start my speech, just one small correction in the great introduction we had there in relation to the access point. So it's actually the other way around. So the western access, there was talk about two access points, east and western. The western access point was the one that we went in with originally, and that was the main access point for the application. That was the one that Essex Highways objected to. We then moved the application access point to the eastern access, which was also shown on screen. The officer's report is correct in that findings, and also one of the drawings shown did show the correct access as well. I just wanted to make that clear before you make a judgment. So that access you're looking at there is the eastern access, and there was another slide which showed that is the eastern access. The other one you looked at was the western access. That's the access that we're going forward with, and that's the access which is agreed with Essex Highways. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Yes, I think the officer made that clear. So thank you very much.
Just to start my speech, my name is George Weilerman, and I'm the head of planning for the applicant Aura Power. Before I commence my speech, I received a short statement from Essex Friends of the Earth, which they requested read out. This reads as follows. I'm sure you're all aware that climate change is beginning to cause immense suffering in the poorest countries of the world and is now impacting us here in the UK. Research by the University of Bath shows young people are becoming increasingly concerned about what the future holds for them, with over half of 16 to 25-year-olds suffering from eco-anxiety. Never before has the need to make the shift to renewables technology been clearer. Just over a week ago, the threat of Russian sabotage of our North Sea energy infrastructure added another reason to generate as much electricity as we can on land. With demand growing for copper and other minerals, it's essential we limit the use of such materials through reduced cabling by generating as much electricity as we can close to the point where it's consumed. For those reasons and many others, we must welcome the prospect of so much electricity being generated so close to Rayleigh. And this scheme builds on the successes of earlier solar farms by increasing the biodiversity of the area. This is exactly the kind of project young people want to see and can make us proud as a town of our efforts to secure a safe future for all. I hope you feel able to approve this excellent scheme. And then following on from that, just starting with my speech as the applicant. The policy position of support for renewable energy generation in the UK is clear. The 2020 Energy White Paper describes solar as a key building block for the future energy generation mix. The NPPF provides a presumption in favour of renewable energy and confirms that the planning system should support renewable and low carbon energy. The revised draft NPS EN3 describes renewables as an essential element of the transition to net zero. The 2021 net zero strategy states the UK will be powered entirely by clean energy by 2035, with infrastructure needed to be deployed at an unprecedented scale. The British Energy Security Plan has an anticipated five-fold increase of solar capacity in the UK from 14 gigawatts to 70 gigawatts by 2035. The Making Essex Carbon Neutral plan sets out a target of 1.43 gigawatts of large-scale solar by 2030, as well as setting a target to supply all of the county's energy from renewables by 2040. Rochford's Sustainability Action Plan sets a requirement to generate 100 megawatts of renewable energy in the district by 2030, which aims to achieve carbon neutrality and, where possible, carbon negativity, continuing to support the large-scale renewable energy projects. The benefits provided by the proposed development are all substantial and evident. With a capacity of 30 megawatts, Rayleigh Solar Farm will help meet the critical challenge of tackling climate emergency and supporting local and national net zero targets. It will provide clean electricity to power the equivalent of around 11,400 homes, saving approximately 13,000 tonnes of CO2 every year over gas generation. For visualization, 1 tonne of CO2 is approximately 8 meters cubed, or one passenger flying from London to Boston and then returning again. So quite substantial when you're considering it's just 13,000 tonnes of saving every year. It includes extensive landscape proposals to improve habitats for wildlife, calculated to deliver a biodiversity net gain of 141%. And the site comprises entirely of subgrade 3B, which is not best and most versatile agricultural land. Furthermore, agricultural operations will continue on the site through sheep grazing during the operation of the solar farm. The site is already well screened from established vegetation surrounding, with the opportunities for additional screening and breaking reviews by planting additional trees and hedgerows within the site. Wildflowers and species-rich grassland will replace intensively farmed fields, allowing the soil to rest and rejuvenate, from the use of pesticides and fertilizers, as well as providing a stable store of carbon. We have actively engaged the local community and held an online webinar in September 2021. We've also met with local residents on an individual basis.
1 minute left.
The main takeaway from this exercise is that local people would prefer to see a solar farm than a new housing development. It should also be noted that Raleigh Town Council do not object to the application. In accordance with the officer's recommendation, we ask that members approve the planning application, which is policy compliant, and as detailed in the application will have extensive public benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. And if you'd like to take a seat again. Now it's turn of Mr. Jill Waite. If you'd like to come to the chair, and you have 5 minutes, and I'll. Microphone, please.
Sorry, no microphone. 6.5 of the officer's report will be helpful, paragraph 3.188, if you need to refer to it.
Could you repeat those, please?
Page 6.5, paragraph 3.188. And also, if you had the Natural England response handy, that'll make things easy. So 3.188 on page 6.5. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. The pressure to achieve RDC's renewable energy goals should not be used to justify an industrial scale solar development in the wrong location. Rooftop solar offers the best opportunity for a triple win: climate, community, and countryside. For the record, I'm here tonight objecting as a resident. I did go to the webinar in 2021, and I'm also a Raleigh Town councillor, and I objected to this application at our planning committee in May 2022. I based my objections then and now on the following material considerations. This development is on our greenbelt and on the best, most versatile agricultural land. It fails to enhance the landscape, it fails to preserve our heritage assets, and a 40-year-old oak tree will be destroyed, amongst others, as you could see by that access point. The NPPF states that many renewable energy projects are inappropriate and harmful to the greenbelt. Where harm is identified, there should be a strong presumption against approval in the planning balance. The greenbelt, the fundamental aim of the greenbelt is to prevent urban sprawl and keep land permanently open, i.e. nothing else on it. The solar arrays will immediately harm the greenbelt in terms of ground cover due to the sheer quantity of them. Ask yourselves this question: is this development essential for our district? This council has already approved 2 industrial scale solar developments that are already producing 70 megawatts of renewable energy. You're at 70% already. There are 3 more pending this committee's consideration: 1 in Rawreth, 1 in Fanbridge, and this one, all on agricultural land. Please consider this cumulative impact to our greenbelt. Enough is enough. The paragraph I said about, we shouldn't be made to choose between food or renewable energy production. Our district can have both. 60% of our food is imported, arable land is in decline, and yields are reducing due to the global warming impact on land quality. To quote the Secretary of State, great importance is placed upon our agriculture and food production. Any proposal involving the best and most versatile agricultural land would need to be justified by the most compelling evidence. The land survey by the applicant classified it as subgrade 3B. However, Natural England says the opposite. They confirmed that this application is likely to affect the best and most versatile agricultural land. Natural England also questions whether this is an effective use of land, as planning guidance encourages the siting of these developments on brownfield and non-agricultural land. I ask you to put significant weight on Natural England's view and not the applicants. Landscape. Planning inspectors recognise that industrial scale solar developments undermine the unspoiled character and appearance of the landscape. They have upheld council refusals on that basis. Look at the view from Great Wheatley Farm. The occupier of that farm has understandably objected to this application. The Historic Buildings and Conservation report you received confirms that this development will give an industrialising effect, contrary to the agricultural landscape setting, resulting in harm to the greenbelt. That's enough to refuse this application as well. The heritage site as open arable land is considered to positively contribute to the historic farmstead and the designated heritage assets within it. The Historic Buildings report says this scheme fails to preserve the special interest of listed buildings through the change in the setting, i.e. from open land to regimented intrusive rows of hard surface solar panels. Their report is clear. Public benefit would have to outweigh the harm for each asset. There's 3 assets. The Secretary of State has already confirmed that even if limited to 30 years, reversibility should not be an influential factor in the decision-making process and should be given little weight. This is for 40 years. The campaign for rural England's protection is clear. Grazing sheep and beekeeping are token gestures. Bird and bat deaths are common as they mistake the glass for water, and the land will degrade as half of it is going to be in permanent shadow. Planning policies and decisions should protect, contribute and enhance the natural local environment. This will enhance nothing. With the Holt Farm tree, and we all remember that,
1 minute.
RDC had no official power to stop its destruction. It was not within your control. With this oak tree and all the other trees they want to fell as well, maple, oak, sycamore, birch, you can stop this. The cumulative impact to the landscape and farmland must carry substantial weight. Please consider this in your decision this evening. And one final point. Next week, you're all voting to declare a climate and ecological emergency. Please bear that in mind. Start early, start now. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I start by asking if there are any visiting members who would like to speak? No one indicating? Okay. Ward members, Councillor Lawman, I believe, is the only ward member here. So do you have anything you want to say? Yes? Okay, I'll let you.
I hope I'm close enough, thank you. If you could bear with me in your indulgence, I'm trying to refer to comments made within the report. So before I start, obviously I'm very familiar with this site and I've been walking that area with other neighbours for some time. So I have a good idea what's going on. And I'd like to refer you to 316 on page 616. And there's a comment in there, probably 4 or 5 lines down, and it says, although there is where are we? Oh, here we are. In review of the council's policies relating to greenbelt development, policy GB1, greenbelt protection, reflects the national policies which prevail at the time and are not changed at this time in terms of their fundamental principles and objectives. I heard the comment saying about being a significant value. Where is it significant? It's something that's been placed in to gather electricity for the country, if you like. And I think it's more about money than it is as a significant value. So I would challenge that comment, but then I want to go on to 619, I think, yes, item 328, and it says there, like, neither the framework nor the adopted local plan provide guidance as to what compromises very special circumstances VSC. Either singly or in combination. However, some interpretation of VSC has been provided by the courts. And it goes on to tell you about very special circumstances. I simply haven't heard anything that produces this, to me, as very special circumstance. And I'll come to my point when I finished, if I may, Chairman. Then we go to page 623, 3.47. It says, in conclusion, its submission of the benefits, the submission acknowledges there will be impacts, namely the openness of the green belt, heritage farm, harm, and landscape harm. Right. So taking these matters in turn, paragraphs 147 and 148 of the MPPF state that inappropriate development on the green belt is by definition harmful and carries substantial weight. And then it goes on, it's clear that many energy projects will compromise inappropriate development. This is in the report. So then we come on to, if I may, I'm sort of got far my points here, sorry. I'm looking at the pages, 6.2, I've done that one. Then I come to 639, I do apologise. About the glare and there's a comment there, 3.131 at the bottom of 639. Solar, I can't pronounce all the words, but particularly reflective. I'm not particularly reflective, but if you read that the other way, that means they are reflective. And so I want to take it to my point in principle, really, that because it goes on in some detail, that I walked that area, I'm very familiar with the area, and when you compare this to the already suggested solar farm that we have, that is on a flat plane. This is on a raised environment. And people say, I've been there and I've been in people's gardens. And to say that it won't have a visual impact is insulting. So I've seen that, and I can look over to the vines and I can look at the field. In fact, I've walked the field just for fun. But the thing is that it will have an impact. I see also in the report that it's going to have a security fence of 2.1. Well, the panels are going to stand 3 metres high, according to that. Then you've got containers in there. So to suggest that this will be unobtrusive or, suddenly hidden in the fields is completely wrong. It's also placed in a very, very open aspect. You've got main roads going by, you've got houses above, you've got junctions on the corner. And of course, at one end, they have what they call the playground area further up the road. But the thing is that you've got walks and woods. I just feel that this is just almost as if it's like land grabbing and it's being put in the most appropriate place. Now, I'm all in support of renewable energy. I'm all in support of getting our country and we've got an issue in this town and in this district with air quality and other things. What I don't have a problem with is switching the light on. So I think that this particular project will be inappropriate and adverse to the people living in that area. And I think I can't support this application because I think it's completely in the wrong place and in the wrong conditions. And people up above, I did talk to some members earlier about that's what they thought of farms. And they said, oh, we've got one over at Cambridge or wherever it was. And we looked down on it and it looks like a burnt field. And what an expression. Who wants to sit in their bedroom and look down on a burnt field? So, and there's a slight glimmer and it looks like water. Well, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. And the people in Rayleigh needs to be respected. We've taken enough, impact on our town as it is with other projects. And I think this just steps over the line and I don't think it's appropriate and I can't support this application.
Thank you. Do we have any other members? Okay, Councillor Sharp. Who?
Thank you, Chairman. Also a ward councillor for Wheatley Ward, and I've seen the site from the end of Great Wheatley Road. I didn't have a particular view one way or the other before attending the meeting. I've heard the argument from both sides, and I have come to the conclusion that this potentially will be an eyesore, as it is sloping land, as Councillor Lorman said. So the view from the end of Great Wheatley Road will be very much affected by it. And also a number of trees, I think mature trees, will have to be destroyed in the process of building this farm. The benefits of renewable energy are well known. This isn't particularly efficient. 30 megawatts, I guess, is the total capacity when the sun is shining. So that's certainly not all year round, and it's certainly not 24 hours a day. 30 megawatts is the equivalent of 5 wind turbines, 4 or 5 wind turbines. So in that sense, renewable energy is far more efficient. I think it will be an eyesore. It's the wrong place. I'm all in favour of solar PV, but at source, ideally, on the roof of houses or social clubs or anywhere like that, as long as it's not in a conservation area, of course. So I'm totally in favour of solar PV in the right place, and I don't think this is the right place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Constable.
Thank you. I think you spoke about the trees, but you said you'd come back to it. You made no mention of the loss of the trees, what number of trees and why they were being removed. Perhaps you could go into that into a little bit of detail in a moment. Also, you spoke about the working hours with the site was being done as being 7 days a week. If this was to be granted approval, I would object to those working hours. And you didn't mention, you said about the construction entry, you haven't mentioned whether there's going to be any speed restrictions on that entry road to facilitate the construction. Perhaps you could go into detail on those three items for me, please.
I'm afraid the slides have let me down, so I haven't been able to show you everything that I do need to show you, unfortunately. So can you just repeat what the first question, the first issue was, please?
It was on the trees. You did say in your talk that you would come back to the trees, but you didn't make any mention within your talk about what trees are going and what the loss of those trees are to the area, or mention it or show it at all.
So in paragraph 3.14, the revisions to the access affects group 1, which forms a... Can I just read this, because our members can refer to 3.154.
154.
Sorry, 3.154.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? We are getting towards the 2.5 hour mark.
Right.
Can I say that I'd like to move a motion without notice according to Committee Procedure Rule 9 to extend this meeting beyond 2.5 hours for as long as necessary in order to complete this item. Second? All in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, 7 for, 3 against, so we are going to be extending the meeting, hopefully not for too long. Back to you, Al. Sorry that.
Try and answer this the best I can. Sorry? I'm just going to refer to 3.154 now. The revision to the access affects group 1, which forms a linear belt of ash, blackthorn, elder, hawthorn, sycamore, wild cherry on the A127, but I'm really not getting where the loss of this oak tree is coming in. Because somewhere in the report, I also report that there's not going to be loss of any significant trees because they've been categorised. And neither has been objection. So our arboricultural consultant, James Chort, has seen these revised plans. He's commented on the plans and he's got no objection to these plans. So in terms of, I think there is an area, but this paragraph here is mainly the main paragraph that relates to trees now they're affected. And I don't know where the speaking member of the party is extrapolating that there's going to be a loss of an oak tree. It's a suggestion, Chairman, that we refer this to the agent to clarify this matter, because I'm not aware of loss of oak trees, and neither is our consultant's arboricultural, James Cho.
Are you suggesting then that we defer?
No, I'm not suggesting we defer, but I'm not getting where these loss of trees is being. As far as we're concerned, there isn't going to be any significant loss of trees, only sort of trees of low grade trees which are growing along the side of the road. There's no sort of significant oak trees being felled in connection with this development. That is my understanding of the development.
So I'm not really clear on what you're asking for.
The suggestion is that trees are being felled, isn't it, in connection with the construction of access. I'm not aware of any trees other than what's mentioned there being felled. They're low grade, small, round, small grade trees like shrubs within the hedge line. I don't know where the reference to the oak tree is actually coming from.
Sorry, we can't take anything from the public. I'm sorry about this.
If I can just clarify, paragraph 3.154 talks about certain works to trees, but not removal.
3 point. Yeah, what I'm being informed is it's works to the trees, not loss of the trees. I'm sorry, I know members of the public really want to actually contribute on this, but it's not the position that I can accept that, I'm afraid. Sorry about that, but that's just what it is. So I'm not seeing that is being a material consideration in what we can actually consider.
Well,
on this.
it does say at the bottom of that the road may affect the route, which would affect the tree. Perhaps some condition could be looked at that those routes could be protected.
There's already conditions.
There is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing was on the working hours and speed restrictions.
Okay, anyone else? All of a sudden. Councillor Hoy.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Stanley's next.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. On my inspection of the site, this was some time ago, with Mike Strangs, there's a large area between the grapevine and the second half of the field that has got solar, or is proposed to have solar panels. All those trees in that area, I think if you brought up the solar panel farm itself, I could describe where those trees are that we are talking about. There is a vast number of trees and shrubs, and also in the area. Could you bring up the numbers, please? And that will be helpful. Okay. So in frame 5, where you see that, there is a vast area of trees to the border of that. And there is like that ditch that runs there, a hedgerow and so on. In number 3 and number 2, there are several trees in those areas which are mature trees. They are enormous, but they would be in my garden anyway. And they're in a field, and they don't seem to be there. And I did ask that the committee should have an aerial view of the site, complete aerial view, not as it stands like that, as it stands at the moment. And I did specifically ask for that. And it doesn't seem to have materialised. This would help us a great deal in deliberation, but obviously it's not going to help the way these have been put together. Thank you.
Sorry, just hang on a minute. I'm just asking a bit of advice here. Okay, we'll come back to that. In the meantime, Councillor Hoy.
Thank you. Before I start commenting, I can help with the issue around the removal of the oak tree. It's in one of the reports to the which are online. A Borocultural Method Statement, South East Grid Storage 2 Limited. Table 8 on page 10-ish. If I can get to that.
Sorry, is this in the report?
Tree works. For reason of public safety, all tree work referred to herein must be carried out prior to any site personnel commencing works or any building material being delivered. Table 8, summary of tree works. Number 20, species common oak, fell to ground level, grind out stump.
We haven't seen this. I'm not sure.
This is if you look online and go into the documentations that are provided. So the comments.
We haven't been privy to that because obviously we only have stuff that's.
When I come to a meeting, I tend to look at all documents or as many documents as possible. So it's a report probably not in front of most people here, and many people haven't seen it because a lot of people rely on the officer report. But it clearly states that it's going to be felled to ground level and grind out stump. Others, and it's got other ones as well. G4 various partial removal of brute felled trees within the alignment of the proposed access track. Grind out stumps, prune, crown lift remaining trees to achieve 5 metre clearance, which is what you're referring to about some works on them, but it certainly refers to further trees being removed. But there's number 20, common oak, fell to ground level. It's quite clear that will be happening.
Can I just make an appeal to members that if you actually find information on this which is pertinent to this, that you alert us beforehand, because I think this would have been very.
Sorry,
relevant.
Chairman, this is a report available to everybody on our planning website for this application.
It's not put forward as part of the documentation for us to consider at this meeting. That's the problem. So.
I didn't know that people weren't aware of it. It's on the planning site.
Okay, understood. Councillor Refty.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I was going to ask a couple of questions and make a couple of points, but listening to what's being said about stuff that's in reports, what we haven't seen, and Mr. Orwell's presentation, we've had problems with the presentation. Could we maybe move this to next meeting and actually get the presentation working properly to make a decision on this properly?
I'll take advice on that in a minute.
But the question I had on this, other than that, is the special circumstance. The world has asked us, we've got a climate emergency in the world, so this is one of the things we can do to hopefully help with that. With the question for Mr. Orwell, where I've been looking at the 3.189, where it gives the classifications of soil, and it says that area is grade 3B, which is a subgrade soil. So I don't quite understand where people are saying it's very good soil. It's not, which is in the report, if that's correct. That is correct, yes?
There are 3 grades of agricultural land higher in land classification value than 3B.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've got to be net zero. It's powering our homes, powering our businesses. It's close to our homes and businesses. I haven't got a problem with solar. It'd be really nice to have them on houses, but I can imagine the logistics of trying to organise 1,000 houses to put solar on. We'd never get it done by 2050. So I'm in favour of this. So I'm just putting it out there, but I still think we should have better information because a lot of the report wasn't there.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 6.41, so if you've got it, 3.140, it is understood that commencement of this project is due to start in late 2022. This is the Fair Glen interchange and will be completed in 2024. At the time of preparing the planning submission, the applicant states that it is anticipated that the construction of the solar farm would begin after the highway improvement works are completed. There is no date as yet set out to get the Fair Glen interchange improvements done. So I think that part of the report is completely incorrect, and I've just had it confirmed by Essex Highways as I'm deputy. Okay.
Can I just bring the officer back on that one, please?
Specifically in regards to that question, the timing of the Fairglen interchange was discussed with Mark Lawrence, and that is why there's a condition that covers the event. I'll refer to the condition now. So I think the issue is, if I'm correct, Councillor Shaw, is that what would happen if the Fairglen interchange was lagging behind and this development took place before the Fairglen interchange. So that issue was discussed in detail with the developer, Highways, and it's covered by a condition. I believe it's, if I just bear with me, there's a specific condition on this, and I'll try and find it now, that covers that event. Somewhere in the highway conditions, 1415. This official use of the land access point on the shall be by additional just access drawing. I can't identify it within the condition, but it's definitely covered here somewhere because we discussed it in detail and it's been agreed with the developer in terms of, if I could ask perhaps the agent to confirm which condition that was, because we agreed them with each other. It's to cover that eventuality of ensuring that if that isn't done, then it coincides, the work is done. Somewhere at page 66 or 67. It's either condition 18 or Can I ask the agent to confirm, because it's one of these conditions, but I can't identify which one it is, the way it's worded, please?
Can I suggest then that you just go and have a chat with him now and bring it back to us? In the meantime, councillor Hoy. Microphone, please.
I will remember one day, Chairman, I'm sure. I should be used to these. On the basis that I believe Councillor FD has suggested we defer the item to get further information and to get a better, a more flowing report or a working report from the officer, I would second his motion to defer, because I think there's information we need on the oak tree, definitely information we need on the access point and the build point of this in relation to the Fair Glen interchange. I also have questions around other areas which I was going to come on to, but I can leave that till we come back to the next meeting. So I'm just seconding the motion.
Okay, can I just ask our officers to comment on that particular?
Thank you, Chair. I think we just need to check that that is a motion being made, but all the same, members clearly within their right to request more time to consider things. I would just set out that whilst the presentation is clearly being lengthy and detailed, and we've had a few problems with the slides, the report itself is extremely detailed and it does provide you enough information to make a decision. So the presentation is to supplement the debate and it's to supplement the report that's in front of you. And I would suggest that that is sufficient enough to make a decision here. There's been a number of points raised around information, Fair Glen interchange. I think the point being made on Fair Glen is that the scheme could come forward regardless of whether the Fair Glen scheme comes forward, and that we've had comments back from the Highway Authority to confirm that it's sufficient in that terms. We've had comments made about very special circumstances. There is a significant chunk of this report that sets out the very special circumstances that are considered. So there are a number of questions here that are answered in the report. So I would suggest that the information is sufficient to make a decision, but clearly members can decide whether or not they need more time to make that decision.
Sorry, Chairman, if I may, I would suggest that there are discrepancies in the report to what we're hearing. There is no mention, and the officer isn't even aware that there's a tree being felled where it's clearly shown within the documentation shown online. So it is whether or not the documentation online is correct or whether the officer's report is correct around the felling of a tree. The confusion around the report and the access point has been dealt with, but it just doesn't give us enough comfort given these discrepancies. Also, over the quality of the land, Natural England disagree with the 3B rating. They rate it better. Again, if you look at the report online that Natural England put in, they rate it better, and that's not said in this report. So there are discrepancies, and I think they need to be dealt with.
Our officers would like to just come back, please.
So on the agricultural land classification, that's data that the council's obtained, that's ordnance survey data, it's a shapefile, Esri shapefile, GIS data. So I would suggest that the council's records on the agricultural land classification is actually correct as opposed to Natural England's view. And on the, just picking up on the alleged discrepancy with the felling of the oak tree, I just would remind members that, you know, if there is an admission in the report that there's an oak tree to be felled, we need to think about the wider benefits that this application is actually presenting for the community, for the district of Rochford, and the wider benefits that are being achieved by such a large renewable energy scheme. So, and I think that coming back on the point that Councillor Lorman made about the 2 existing trees that were in the fields that you've witnessed yourself, in the paragraph above at 3.153, it does actually state that the existing trees that are in those fields, the solar panels will be set back from those trees. So obviously those trees would cast a shadow on those solar panels. So there's actual mention of those trees actually in the officer's report. So as just to compound what Mr. Drains actually suggested to you, is that there is sufficient information within the report to actually, for the committee to actually make a decision on this application tonight.
We have, Councillor Hoy has suggested a motion for deferral. Sorry, Councillor Efty did. Can I have a seconder? Okay, you're seconding it. Okay, so then we have to take a vote on that. Before we take the vote, does anyone want to talk on the deferral? Councillor Lawman.
Thank you, Chairman. I never thought we'd do a referral, but I'll just bring up a subject to be considered in that proposal, is that if I've got it wrong, I'll be corrected, but with the interchange, the proposals, I thought they were having another lane on the A127, and there was a flyover going from the A1245 or whatever it is, coming down the other side. That would all affect this plan because it would affect the entries and exits of this property. So perhaps we could know a little bit more about that if we could, please.
Sorry, yes, I will come back.
Yeah, I did say in my presentation that this scheme does coincide with those Fairglen interchange improvements, and that was the purpose also partly of the road stage 1 safety audit. So access to the site has not been considered in isolation to the Fairglen interchange improvements, that they coincide. So the road safety audit would fail if it had failed to taken into account those wide infrastructure improvements so that they dovetail into one another. And that was the purpose of trying to show the brown line and the green line, the sort of the edge of the roadside. So one hasn't been conceived irrespective of the other and vice versa. That's the best I can explain it.
Thank you. Councillor Cross, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to speak against deferring this. I think we've got enough in the report. I've seen the site, as has Councillor Lawman, as has Councillor Stanley, as has Councillor Linden. We know there's trees on the site that will be felled. The online report is there that shows trees that will be felled. I think it mentions 8 oak trees. We've just looked at aerial photographs showing several trees. So I think we've got enough to vote on the main application, and there's no need to defer, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to talk on the motion? Okay, Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know, has anyone read 6.61 and 6.62 of the application? 6.61 and 6.62. There is information there that, and again, I don't want to defer this, but there's information there would have detrimental impact upon the setting of these listed buildings. It also, in conclusion, development is considered to constitute inappropriate development within the metropolitan ring belt and is harmful by definition.
Sorry, Mr. Stanley, but point of order, Chairman, can we please, this vote's been put on the table, it's been seconded. This is not talking to the motion.
We have to stick with the motion.
Although the motion is to defer, again, I agree with Councillor Sharp at the end, that you see no reason why we should, sorry, Councillor Cross, to defer it.
Okay, we have a motion to defer. Can I have an indication of those who are in favour, please? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? No. We have 3 for a motion to defer, 9 against. That motion is lost. We'll carry on. I'm very aware of the time, so I'm going to restrict the amount that we're going to be talking about this. Councillor Hoy?
No, excuse me.
Sorry?
Councillor Shaw's next. You've done. Apologies.
Councillor Hoy?
Thank you, Chairman. I know I've spoken a lot, but I actually haven't said what I came here to say. On the face of it, this is an application that fulfills a lot of the climate change agenda, and I agree with that. But it would seem to be fairly obvious that it would be approved. However, and I will be bringing forward a report on climate emergency and climate and ecological emergency next week. But I believe there's a right place and a wrong place for solar parks. I'm looking at the officer's report and the papers submitted, as well as the MPPF and the papers submitted online, I add, not just the officer's report. I do have some concerns. There appears to be an acceptance, the most recent of which I can find is a February 23 inspector's report, where the supply of electricity from a site may provide the special circumstances that can outweigh the weight given to that of the green belt. And that's been mentioned tonight. Not that case, but that point. In the cases I've found, and in the previous one in the district, Fanbridge, the generation of electricity has been around 49.9 megawatts, which is the maximum they can apply for planning permission for. Enough power to power around 16,000 homes. This one, yeah, I'm just reading what I've typed very recently. This, however, which I've been typing, just to anyone says, I've been typing it as we've had the meeting. It's not pre-typed, and that's why it's not perfect. This site, however, is generating around 30 megawatts, around a third less than those mentioned, and enough to power around 11,000 homes. And I would add, this is going to the grid. So yeah. I think we can't mention community here because it's not going to the local community, it's going to the national grid. So the question arising from that is, what megawatts does the production of electricity not outweigh the special circumstances of the green belt? And I think that's a question that we as a council probably need to answer, and I don't know if this is the right place for that. My concern is that the site isn't producing enough electricity to outweigh those special circumstances on this basis. And I'll just move into biodiversity. To a nice track there. The developers promised a net gain of about 141%, I think it was, which is good. We can't argue with that. But when you're talking about net gains from a farmer's field, they're always going to be quite high because there isn't a lot of biodiversity on a farmer's field. And there are schemes there for planting and attracting wildlife. And I know that they will be agreed and planted before the production of electricity, but I do have concerns about the maintenance of this over the life of the scheme, how the management and the grazing will be managed. I know it's mentioned in the conditions, but there are specifics which I'm not sure how they will manage. There is a suggestion when you look on nationally that sheep perhaps can be used to graze it, but they certainly shouldn't be used in the spring and summer, for instance. So I'm not sure if that's in how detailed that will get, and I think that's important. And also, I was going to say, which comes to the trees, I'm not sure how much this outweighs the trees being chopped down, including an oak tree. And also, I've got here, which is why I know about it again, there's disagreement over the quality of land, with Natural England grading it better than the applicant's 3B, which again goes back to the confusion. If we have a statutory consultee saying it is better than the applicant, and we're saying we disagree with Natural England, we're always being told we can't disagree with a statutory consultee. So I want to know when we can and when we can't. So overall, I have concerns that the arguments for the site could be used for all land within the green belt as well. That there's not a single field in this district that these arguments couldn't be used for, and that we would therefore have to put a solar development on. Also, I'm not sure about whether the cumulative impact was dealt with satisfactorily in the report. We have a target of 100 megawatts production by 2030. I think we're now at 70% of that. Also, I think there's a number of sites in the process of planning that aren't being taken account of here. Also, further to the officer's comments in paragraph 3.25, which is on I should have put the page number for you. Apologies for that. 3.25, which is on page 6.18. And I'm paraphrasing this somewhat, not quoting item for item, but it says the perceived openness of the green belt has largely been eroded by the existence of existing built infrastructure, including the construction of the A127 and the railway line. I'd just like to point out that the land was originally designated green belt. The railway and the 127 already existed. They weren't subsequent to it being green belt. I think we all know that 127 was one of the first dual carriageways in the country, built in the 20s. So that's a little bit misinformation there. And they therefore cannot diminish the weighting given to green belt as the green belt was designated when they were there. So due to these reasons, and also in agreement to some of the comments made by Councillor Lawman, I'm not convinced that the very special circumstances exist for the development to outweigh that of the green belt. So I'm minded at this moment to vote against.
Okay, thank you. I'm minded to bring this debate to a close if I can. I'll allow one more. Councillor Constable.
Yeah, the working restrictions, if this site was to be allowed, hasn't been addressed, nor the speed restriction on the road, which I asked about. I would like to put a condition on that if this site was to go ahead, that working stopped at lunchtime on Saturday, and there was no Saturday afternoon or Sunday workings.
Yeah.
If this was allowed. And
Okay,
I don't know if there's any speed restrictions put in.
Sorry, have you come back on that, please?
So my understanding is, so condition 6 within the recommendation, so my understanding is that there's a proposal to amend the working hours at weekends, then, is it?
So we've got a...
Yeah, so the condition is number 6 on page 6.3, and what it limits, sorry, condition 6 on page 6.3. If we have a look at the hours that are on there. So at the minute, what we've put forward is a restriction of between 7:30 and 6:30, Monday to Friday, and 8:30 to 1, Saturday and Sunday. Now, if members are unhappy with the weekend working, for example, the Sunday, it may be the case that we can perhaps remove the Sunday. The Monday to Friday, I say, is a more average time that we have for working hours during the week, along with the Saturday 8:30 to 1. That's a quite common type time frame on a Saturday for working. But if you're unhappy with the Sunday, that might be something that could be removed.
This was to be allowed.
Yeah, so
I
it
don't
may.
think it's fair on the workers. I don't think it's fair on the residents.
Okay, so if we were looking to go down the line of approval, we could remove the Sunday out of that condition. I think would be reasonable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I've just got a few things that
Sorry. Councillor Cotswell, have you got your speeding issue resolved?
No, was there the speed restriction? Sorry, the speed restriction. Was there anything on the road thing for a speed restriction during the construction phase of the main access road on to the 127?
I can't confirm in terms of the speed restriction. All I know is it's been designed in terms of the speed of traffic and the deceleration and acceleration lanes, but I haven't seen anything stating what the actual speed on that highway will be. Will this be something on a post or something written on the road? All I know, it's been designed with those speed restrictions in mind, but I don't have a figure for the speed.
Yeah, thank you. I think that one would be quite difficult to actually mandate on, I think, if I'm honest. I think I'm right on that. Just a few things I just wanted to say on it. I've listened to all the arguments. I find this application quite interesting because on the face of it, it's a very green proposal, and there are a number of conflicts that I find, even in the arguments against this. So one of the things that I think has stood out to me is the classification of the land being 3B. We've heard from our officers that we've got the classification has been done as recorded scientifically. Natural England, in their comments, they haven't come back with a classification that they actually think it is. they've just come back and said they think it's better. And when we're actually in a situation where we're considering facts, I think that's important. The other thing is, I think it's a very good a kind of vision to have for having rooftop panels, but that is more of a policy issue that I think that we can probably as councillors take forward to a different meeting. So I think that that may be something that we can bear in mind and take away from this meeting. I'm quite torn by the fact that the Friends of the Earth are actually looking at this as a positive. And so I find it quite difficult to actually get so many conflicting sort of areas of people who are green-minded actually giving a completely different view on this. So I've got to be honest, I'm looking at what I'm seeing in the officer's report, and I'm not sure that I can vote against it. The advantages on this, when you look at 11,000 odd houses that this is going to power up, one of the things when I was looking at this, I looked through the percentage of energy produced in the UK. And when you bear in mind that we need to become energy self-sufficient, I'll give you the statistics quickly. Coal is 3.1%, oil is 36.4%, gas is 39.6%, nuclear is 6.1%, bioenergy and waste 8.9%, wind 4.1%, solar 0.7%, hydro or natural 0.3%, other 0.8%. So we have got a mountain to climb if we are going to get to being energy sufficient, self-sufficient in this country. And I think I look at this and I personally, I think that, yeah, in the great scheme of things, it's not big. But every step we take towards getting energy self-sufficient has got to be a positive. Yes, I understand that there are concerns about Greenbelt. I do accept the officer's report where it says that the land is grade 3B. I find it quite strange that Natural England haven't come up with a counter argument on that. And I am green-minded, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, this is going to contribute to our sustainability. And at the end of the day, I think that I'm coming down on the side of thinking that this should actually go ahead. To that mind, I'm going to propose from the chair that we recommend acceptance of the report, and before we vote, I'll just allow one more from. Oh, sorry, you're seconding it. Okay, thank you. So, from the chair, all those in favour of this application, please indicate. Okay. Those against? Those abstaining? The numbers are 4 is 3, against is 6, and abstentions are 3. So that motion is, or that application is refused. Sorry? Oh yeah, now we need to go to the interesting one on, would anyone like to actually propose the reasons for refusal, which we will need to be using at appeal, which I do underline to you need to be solid. Councillor Hoy. Microphone, please.
I noticed Councillor Shaw is helping Councillor Constable with his microphone. I noticed. I need to sit next to her next time. There are a number of grounds. I don't have necessarily the MPPF paragraphs in front of me. I think 151 is important. That in relation to paragraph 151, there isn't a presumption that solar sites like this should be put in the green belt, and that we don't believe that the generation of 30 megawatts is enough of a special circumstance or enough to outweigh the special circumstances of green belt.
That's essentially it.
Councillor Lorman.
Hey, Chairman. I also consider it an overdevelopment. I think it's not in keeping with the general area, you know, because of the impact it will have on the residents all around nearby, and the impact it will have on the visual effects when we go there. I do agree also that I haven't been convinced that this is of a significant case. So that would be another one. But the other thing is, of course, I think that it's a question of values, and I think the value of the local residents is higher than the issue is concerned. Thank you.
Councillor Hoy.
I'll have an assistant now. Thank you. I think, again, in relation to the outweighing of the special circumstances of Greenbelt, I think the fact that the heritage assets are also regarded as, I think it was put in the report, as moderate value, together with the fact that the green belt itself is good. I can't remember the exact wording used.
Can I just come back on the effects on the impact on the heritage asset? We've got a consultation response from Place Services that does acknowledge that there is harm, but it's judged to be less than substantial harm. And the NPPF at paragraph 202 actually states that that harm can be outweighed by public benefit. And it's been demonstrated that in the officer's report that there is that public benefit by the actual delivery of the solar farm.
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
but it's another point. The point I'm trying to make is that the generation of the power at roughly 30 megawatts is not sufficient to outweigh the harms
As
caused.
long as you're,
That's
you
what
know,
I was trying
you
to
want
get
that
at.
as a reason for refusal.
Because
just making you aware that.
Of the ones I've seen, and the Fanbridge one as well, and the one which came forward in the inspector's report in February 23, it was clearly stated that the solar farms there were at the maximum. They're at 49.9 megawatts, and the generation of that outweighed the very special circumstances of Greenbelt.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a third less, and that's why I'm putting that forward as a reason for refusal. It isn't sufficient.
So we'll just stick to that reason for refusal then, that it's that the amount of power being generated doesn't outweigh the harm to the green belt.
Yeah, that seems quite a clear indicator of whether it.
So are we content that we all got one reason for refusal on that basis?
Hang on, I'll just have Councillor Myers wants to contribute.
The only thing I'd like to bring up is section 3.203 on the report, page 6.53, and it actually says, in concluding on the acceptability of this proposal, the development in summary is considered to constitute inappropriate development within the metropolitan green belt and is therefore harmful by definition.
So are you including that in reasons for refusal?
Yes.
Can you just repeat that then, so as that can be? Sorry, which paragraph was that again?
It's on page 6.53 and it's paragraph 3.203.
And the wording for your refusal?
Well, it actually is direct from the report. It just says, in concluding on the acceptability of this proposal, the development in summary is considered to constitute inappropriate development within the metropolitan green belt and is harmful by definition, even taking into account the minimised harm it may be causing.
Okay, can I suggest then that officers repeat back the items that we are suggesting for refusal, so we are very clear, please? Thank you.
Chair, my suggestion would be that we do not add several reasons for refusal. I think the appeal, defending an appeal, would be easier to have one clear reason, or as few clear reasons as possible. I think in the case of saying that it's inappropriate development within the green belt, that is fact, that is why it's in the report. But the report goes on to say the things that outweigh that situation. So I think we'd need to define why we think it's an appropriate development in the Greenbelt. And I think coming back to Councillor Hoy's point, that's probably something that we can base a defence around compared to just having that on its own.
Okay, going on that then, can you just read to us what you will be putting in for the reasons for refusal that we are putting forward, please? Okay, just talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Councillor Longman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm concerned that we're only putting up one reason as per suggestion. If that fails, then we've got no fallback. And I still feel that there is other objections to this that should be heard. And you can say what you like, but I like a reserve put on there that this is not, what I forgot what I told you now, but it's certainly an overdevelopment. It's got an impact in the immediate to the people who live nearby with the visual, effects. And I'd like that added because I don't think one reason is enough. Because if you fail on that one reason, we've got no fallback.
Sorry if I may, I don't agree with that. I think I'm not sure that that's really a material planning consideration in relation to this over and above.
I think we need to take the officer's advice.
Very special circumstances.
And the officer's advice is that we do go with one specific reason for refusal. That would be the one that we could actually stand a chance with. Thank you.
Okay, so the reason for refusal that we've sort of put together based on what's been raised tonight, the development is considered to represent inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, contrary to paragraph 149 of the NPPF, and is not considered to be outweighed by the energy output of the solar farm.
Unless I hear any objections, I will assume that that is the reason and why what we voted on last time. Were you in agreement with that? Agreed? Hang on.
So, Chairman, can I move refusal on that basis?
I want to move on a second.
Okay, so you're proposing the refusal on the basis of what we've read out. Can we have a seconder, please? No, I'm advised that we have to have a vote on the reason that is actually written down and defined. Okay.
Councillor Stanley seconded.
Councillor Stanley second. Did you? Was that right? Okay. Well, I don't want to prolong things too long, so
I'll second the proposal.
thank you. So, are you speaking to the? No? Okay. Right, then can I just ask that we read that out one more time so as we can be clear, and then we'll have a vote on it, and hopefully that'll be the end of the evening.
So the development is considered to represent inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, contrary to paragraph 149 of the NPPF, and is not considered to be outweighed by the energy output of the solar farm.
Okay, those in favour, please indicate. Okay, hands down. Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Okay, that is 6 for, 1 against, 5 abstentions, so that is carried. Thank you, members, and ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the evening. The meeting is closed at 10:34.